Nice to meet you, Mr.
Likewise,
Shea.
man.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Can you
Sure.
please tell us about yourself?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So my name is Shay.
Okay.
I'm founder of Black Industries, where we're trying to build humanoid robots to
Okay.
replace soldiers. So
Okay.
I grew up in like a lovely city called Port Harcourt, right?
Wow.
So I got shot when I was younger by like some robbers, and then I just said, so it made me want to help to protect people, right? So I actually got shot in the head. That's
Wow.
like a pretty big deal. So yeah,
Wow.
and so it sort of made me want to sort of like help like other people that have sort of experienced similar. And I literally grew up in Nigeria seeing Boko Haram terrorists moving mad, quote unquote. And so at some point I actually wanted to join the army, but I decided against it because I would have died for nothing. And I decided that technology would be like the best method or medium to solve some of these problems that I had identified. And so after going through like a lot of sort of when I say solutions, because we tried building like so many products, so we then settled on building humanoid robots to replace soldiers.
Oh.
Most persons understand robotics like in the context of industrial use cases. So talking about robots that move boxes in factories or that move parts in like automotive type factories specifically. But then talking about defense robotics, I mean, it may sort of seem like a bit scary to certain people because I mean, it sort of feels like Terminator, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there's like a subset called defense robotics, and a lot of people do not sort of like understand that that is actually here to save their lives.
Lovely. Lovely. So, what's a project that didn't work the first time, and what did it teach you?
Okay. So yeah, so sometime in 2024, we had like a design for like a sentry tower system that was going to be used to protect pipelines because we recognized that there was an issue where people were blowing up pipelines, right? And it caused us like a lot of problems here in Nigeria. So we had like a design, but then around that time, I found out that there was really no venture capital ecosystem for people building hard tech or physical technologies, physical systems rather. There was more like of a system, like systems existed for people building in fintech. And since we weren't building in fintech, we didn't exactly need those systems because we needed systems that worked for us, building physical systems. Couldn't get capital to get parts that we needed. So
Interesting.
that failed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Where do you think robotics will impact everyday life the most, especially here in Nigeria?
Well, well, I mean, looking at Nigeria's problems, the scale of problems, or rather, the problems are sort of focused on some deficits that we do have in terms of our infrastructure. So we're talking about systems to build roads, to build housing, etc., and then security. Now, because of my area, I tend to lean towards like security more. I think there's a huge need,
Okay.
more so in security than in other areas, because we truly need systems that can replace people on the battlefield. We need multiple force multipliers to be able to protect people from threats. So I think I think security, that realm is the area that needs like robotics the most. Frankly, on this continent.
Yes.
That's my opinion.
Considering the fact that most of the soldiers in the northeast have loved ones, and then they have to leave their families and all. And if this structure can be replaced,
Exactly.
yeah, I'm convinced it will to be of benefit. Yeah,
Indeed. I mean, they're human beings. Our lives are so freaking precious.
honestly.
So precious. And like I reckon that robots should actually do this job because robots can do the job a lot better and with a lot of lethality. And that's a good thing, right? For us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in terms of malfunctioning and all, like how do you put these robots in line?
Okay. Yeah. So basically, like a lot of people have this fear, right? That robots are just gonna go like a bit rogue.
Yeah.
Well, not exactly, because they're programmed to follow rules that we give it, right? Even though they're going to be fully autonomous, they're supposed to follow our rules. There's certain guardrails in place, and the entire system is supposed to be slightly isolated, right? Well, yes, isolated in the sense that it is not like a system that is sort of streaming like data for its operations from some data center.
Okay.
It operates at the edge, so the instructions are on the computers, the onboard computers. So the only way you would be able to hack it would be to get to it, open it, and because of how you're going to build the systems, there's no chance of that. I mean, of course, there are always exceptions, right? Someone could figure something out.
Yeah.
But the point is that because the systems are at the edge, they are somewhat isolated, right? And then that sort of like enables us to have the best security available. And we're going to also do like a lot of work to make sure that our systems are secure. Like we're not just going to leave it to chance and say, oh, it's not going to happen. Not exactly. Like we're going to actually try to make sure that our systems are impenetrable, right?
Like okay. Okay, lovely. What systems in terms of putting all these checks in place? What means or measures? If you can just give us one, so at least we'll have an idea of
We want to control access to our systems as much as possible. If we can control access, we can reduce the risk of some of these things happening. Now, of course, our systems are not going to be made open source because they shouldn't be because of what they're built for, right? So, so basically, if we can make some of the ports proprietary, we can try to reduce the chances of this happening. But then, we also need to sort of make sure that our software layer has the best in class security, and that would like ensure that we are like up to date. Like,
very important.
My team members are like sort of more sort of like in tune with that, like than I am. So I'll let them talk about it later. So yeah,
lovely. Nice. Do you see robots replacing people or working alongside humans in the future?
Well, I mean, there's like a bit of an argument, like very like a very emotional argument that like people should not be replaced, that etc, that people should not be like replaced from certain roles, and robots shouldn't replace them. I think robots should replace people in jobs that are very, very dangerous, right? And I think for certain jobs, for some companies, robots just make like a lot of sense because they are like a lot more efficient at certain jobs.
Okay.
I think if a company reckons that is sort of suitable for them to replace people, I think they should go. I think they should do it, right? I mean, as one of my robots says, Elon. So there's like a future that's coming where like a lot of humans are going to need to get some kind of like universal basic income, where they do not exactly need to work, but they get like funds from the state. I think that's probably going to happen, right? Because robots are here to actually like change our lives forever. So yeah, we should be quite expectant of that future.
I'm just trying to look at robots operating with this Nigeria atmosphere and all. It's going to be crazy.
Absolutely mega.
Wow.
Absolutely mega. I mean, yeah. And
eventually, someone like you now might have robots guiding you and all.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Bodyguard duties.
True, and they're so good. Like they could be so like they're so accurate. Could be more accurate than human beings. Like it's absolutely crazy because of the amount of compute they have. They can pick up on so many patterns that people can't pick up on. So they'll be able to find threats fairly quickly. Well, more than any human being would be able to, like ordinarily, with enough training, of course.
Yes.
Training is like a huge layer.
No emotions, nothing.
Well, I mean, like emotions are good for certain scenarios. I know, of course, like in regards to how we connect as human beings and like romance, basically. Like of course, like it's good to like be able to connect emotionally. But then when you're talking about work or things where people's lives matter, you shouldn't care about like emotions per se. You should care about effectiveness, efficiency. Especially when you're talking about people's lives. You should actually sort of like optimize for the most efficient outcome and for the best outcome rather. Best / most efficient outcome. So
interesting. If someone wants to start a robotics today with no equipment, where should they begin and what skills should they focus on first?
The first thing anyone should know is that your team is the most important component. Your team, it's really the most important component because as a person, you cannot know everything. It's impossible, right? So you want to sort of optimize for sort of like you want to solve for that effectively. And how do you solve for that? You need to bring people that know things that you do not know, right? And we are wired differently as people. There are concepts that come fairly easy to me that do not come so easy to some other people. So then you have like a collabo,
of sorts. Collaboration, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of like merge, and then you can have this fusion.
Hmm.
This fusion that is so balanced that enables you to become so good at what you do, right? So that's what you should sort of like focus on initially. And then it also helps to know what you're trying to build, right? Because and why you're trying to build that particular thing. Because it sort of helps you to actually help people to become aligned in that goal. For example, trying to build humanoid robots to replace soldiers. I mean, when you sort of talk about this to people that have sort of seen pain, that have seen suffering, that see that see the utility or the usefulness of these solutions, it's a lot easier to convince them, right? Because you're sort of like giving them some kind of image and you're steering them in a particular direction. So that's basically it. It's super critical having a team
Yeah.
and knowing what you're trying to build.
Lovely, lovely. So with all motion put in place, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years
5 years.
from now?
But yeah, I mean, I certainly want to be, well, in a different climb.
Hmm.
So we are trying to build our firm in America because it's like America is the best place to be, honestly. I
Kind of
mean,
opportunities, yeah.
exactly. And not just that. I like to tell people that America is not just a country. America is an idea. And it's this idea that literally makes people build solutions that other people reckon are crazy. They build these solutions and they change the world from America. So so that's like the place I want to be in. It's something I want to be part of. Like I personally feel so connected to like America,
Hmm.
just just based on the fact that I'm building tech like this. And we also know that for capital, if you're trying to build physical systems, you need to be in America. That
Yeah.
is where the capital is at. And
Yes.
that is where people that actually understand building physical systems, that understand the complexities, the nuances of these systems. That is where they are. America.
Interesting. But around the world now, are there people actually using these robots to fight wars for defense and all?
Well, yeah. I mean, so certain systems are used, not human robots per se,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
But more regular UAVs or drones,
Yeah.
as they're called.
Yeah.
So the war in Ukraine showed us that that you could use accessible systems that are cheap and can be easily replaced. Like that you can use them to actually like disable a tank. So you can use
Military tank.
exactly.
Wow.
You can use like a drone that costs like $5,000 to actually destroy a tank that costs 20 million. Just you just have to put them like in the right place, and yeah, so it's absolutely mental. So that sort of like showed like the world like how like what's like it's probably going to like look like in the future. And then so you have multiple configurations. You have people using fixed wing platforms for surveillance and other long range missions because fixed wing platforms have higher endurance. They can fly farther, they can fly higher, and they can fly faster actually.
Okay.
And then there are some people that use quadcopters. So these are drones that have four rotors, like
Okay.
they look similar to like your media drones,
Yeah.
like the DJI
For
Mavericks
yes.
and co.
Yes.
So those ones are like a lot of people use them as like kamikaze drones. You can use the fixed platform as that as kamikaze drones. So these drones that just go attack like an object and explode. So they're not dropping any payloads. They are the payload effectively.
Wow.
So they basically go just
Wow.
yeah.
Interesting. Funny enough, I haven't heard of such ideas, even in the Western world, Asia, and coming from Africa. Wow, I'm really impressed.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank you.
really impressed.
Thank you.
Robots actually fighting in place of humans.
Yeah, indeed.
I haven't heard of that before.
I mean, they they're going to be so good at this. I mean, because they are going to be made for it, right? And human beings are not. I think we are made for better. Anything.
Actually,
We are made for more. So that's my reckoning.
nice. All right. So, when did you start this company?
Yeah. Okay. So I started Black sometime in late 2024. So actually around October. Actually, that's when like I started like moving like fully like on it. And then I actually joined an accelerator by Nice Concert. So the very first cohort, I was in that program. So we thought the program was going to get us access to capital, but it didn't give us access to capital, sadly. So they promised, but that didn't exactly pan out. So 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 I basically just continued it. So I just went and then I continued sort of working and then trying to sort of make something work. So then as I continued working, I found out that there's really no way to raise capital like in Nigeria because the ecosystem just did not exist here, right? Like specifically talking about political systems and getting capital for those systems. I mean, right now we're trying to raise like a $2 million seed round, and I've been talking to like some venture capitalists, some American venture capitalists basically, and then but the thing is, and then for for like a lot of them, it's quite hard for them to understand, including the biggest firms, right? It's quite hard for them like to understand because it's so new, right? And it's something that's like a bit scary still to like a lot of people. So not like a lot of them like understand it. So then I just continued, and then I decided to build a team, and I just went all in. I went all in, and I started building my team. I reached out to like a very lovely friend of mine. Her name is Kelly. So she was one of the like first believers, and she helped me like a lot of.
When was that?
That was in I met Kelly in 2025.
Oh,
Say like early 2025.
okay,
First quarter of 2025.
okay. You
Yeah.
can continue. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So and she helped with like some pieces of like of the design. And then I met Monday, who's also part of the team. So Monday led the development of Africa's first humanoid robot. And I was like, I just had to have this guy on the team. He's a very, very sort of, like smart guy. He knows like what he's doing. He's very, very experienced in like robotics. I was like, this guy has to be on the team still. And most importantly, one trait that I saw in these two persons, they're both crazy.
Yeah.
They're absolutely crazy. And I definitely wanted that because I'm crazy as well, right? I definitely wanted to sort of build like a community of of math sciences, if you will, that wanted to sort of shape something or like change like the way the status quo.
Status quo.
Basically to change the status quo.
Actually,
And then yeah, I found them.
lovely,
Yeah.
lovely,
And
interesting.
it's also like someone else, like Daniel. So Daniel, he is also like a design engineer. He's also like super good at what he does. So he does 3D design, and then he's mega.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us what visibility you've gotten so far?
Yeah. Okay. So I really haven't focused on getting so much of that, but I've definitely sort of like I've had like a couple of like people like sort of interview me. I suppose I had like an interview with like a firm sometime last year, and then just bits and pieces. But I really have not optimized for that because based on what we are building, it's not information that's for the public really. So
Actually,
so it makes sense to just focus on building, right, as opposed to trying to get like a lot of media, like attention, and like in that. So yeah.
actually. So, how have you managed ups and downs?
Yeah. I mean, well, I have like a kind of personality that if I care about something, I'm not going to stop, man. I'm really not going to stop. But the point is, like, I'm going to go until I win. I'll continue going until I win. I can't afford to give up because giving up is just insane. It makes no sense at all. Because if you give up, you- you're going to end up starting from scratch again. So you might as well just continue. So weather the storm. Let's continue pushing still, regardless. So you tell yourself, pain is temporary. Pain is important. Pain is good. And then you send it. Basically,
Interesting.
that's how it is.
So far, how have you taught yourself with growth and progressing and all? How have you taught yourself so far?
Well, okay, yeah. So I I identify as a self-taught engineer, right? Because I have I mean, obviously, like engineering, most persons that are engineers by training. But I wouldn't call myself that by training because I didn't study engineering in school. I'm
Okay.
actually a political scientist.
Wow.
So there's that. So
Wow.
well, I always care like a lot like about like the studies of how to build things. But let's just say I couldn't learn the way I was taught in school, right? And in fact, I think I would argue that school is very, very bad at teaching. Because imagine teaching so many like people with very like sort of like experiences with like different mindsets, with different personalities.
Hmm.
Imagine teaching all of them the same way. That is insane. How do you expect people to learn? There's no way that's going to happen still.
Hmm.
So most people need like a personalized approach that works for them because they are different. We are all different, right? Of course, when I was younger, I couldn't really like figure that out. My parents were always shouting at me, "Don't fail, don't fail, don't fail." so
Actually.
so yeah, and then so I failed a lot. Oh God, I failed a lot. I
Hmm.
remember being like the 25th person.
Hmm.
I was like 26 people like in the class.
Wow. Out of 26.
Yeah, like
Wow.
that was like a lot of failure still by
Wow.
like school standards, right? But then I found out that I was a visual learner.
Hmm.
I needed to be able to see things, to be able to imagine them,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So once I can see something, or if I can hear something, and I can connect it to my imagination, it's literally locked. I can't forget it. And then there's also something that's super important in regards to learning.
Hmm.
Why? Why? Why are you learning something? You need to know why you're learning like a particular thing for it to make sense to you, right? And then, so for example, math. Math used to be like my worst subject.
Wow.
And you know how like in Nigeria, like math teachers have this very, very bad reputation of being mean,
Honestly.
being extremely terrible people, right?
Even for me, but though I had one woman that really liked me,
You
yeah.
see,
But I didn't still like maths,
you see,
despite the effort she made.
crazy.
Yeah.
So, well then, like once you once you have like an idea of why you need to learn math, because for example, let's look at something like trigonometry.
Hmm.
If you're trying to build like an aircraft
Hmm.
and you're dealing with like angles or like you need to understand have some knowledge of trigonometry, even though that's like sort of like connected to physics, but it's still math, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you see, you're trying to do construction and you're trying to build like some kind of foundation. You need to be able to have measurements and understand the stresses that those things are going to handle.
Yeah.
That is math, basically. So understanding why you need to learn particular things is super critical. And people should also know that you don't have to know everything. You don't have to. You do not. You can know something, someone else does, someone else does. You come together, you partner, you come together and you build these solutions. It's super critical.
Interesting.
So you see, those
Nice.
like so just knowing why and partnering are things that are so critical. So like school has this idea of like cheating and saying that's like a bad thing when you're asking questions. In real life, that is false. If you don't partner, you're in big trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You need to partner.
Mm-hmm.
So that basically means that
Hmm.
when you come to the real world, you're going to have to actually unlearn a lot of the things you learned in school because your teacher was telling you BS for the most part. I mean BS. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's really it still. But yeah,
Nice. Interesting. Interesting. Now you see, with this, we are both learning mathematics. We are learning traditional, how the traditional learning in the class works and all, and what students coming up need to learn and unlearn. Yeah, from what you just told us previously. So so far, what advice do you have for the young ones coming up, people that want to venture into this field, to see how they can explore with the potentials and skills they may have? What
okay,
advice do you have for them?
okay. So I mean, so like of course I'm not gonna give just like advice for like robotics. If you're trying to build like a startup in general, focus on something that sort of that speaks to you, yeah, like a problem that you sort of like encounter, because then you'd have the actual drive. If you focus on money, which is paper,
Hmm.
yeah, you're gonna fail still, man.
Hmm.
You're gonna fail hard. It's super critical that you focus on things that actually sort of matter to you, things you reckon that, that the world would be much better off having, right? That's my sort of point of view. Of course, you may disagree. That's lovely as well, but I reckon that you should have something that you care about so much, and the world needs to care about that thing as well. Or rather, that thing should solve a huge problem that the world faces. Super critical. And note, the more people you can solve problems for, right, the better off the world is going to be because of you. That's mega, isn't it? So
Hmm.
you see, yeah,
Crazy.
there's that. And then just just go all in, man. I mean, like for me, like I've had to sacrifice like a lot of things, right?
Hmm.
A lot. Talking about like relationships, etc. You're probably going to face the same, right? But this solution is sort of like super critical for the world. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices for the greater good, right? So if you reckon you're bold enough, go ahead and do it. Well, if you do not want to, maybe a more conventional path is sort of for you. But if you reckon that a more conventional path is not your path, then you should take risks. So yeah,
That's generally
generally, yeah.
okay.
And I think
Because
it's quite like important to be a contrarian, right?
okay.
What I mean by that, you do not want to follow what like a lot of people record is the truth. You want to be like in a position where where you are so well studied that they have like information that like a lot of people do not have, right? That puts you ahead of like a lot of people, right? And and this sort of goes into something that like one of my role models says as well. His name is Peter Thiel. He was one of the founders of Palantir and PayPal. So
Okay.
he says something about being a contrarian. What is one thing that very few people agree with you on? That thing is probably a gold mine because you cannot afford to follow the crowd. Follow the crowd is insane because he also connects this to the idea of competition. When you're building like a startup in a vertical that other people are building in, you're sharing your profits. Why are you doing that? Why? Well, you could be the one running the show. You could be the one ahead. You could be the face of that vertical. If only you took that risk. Take a risk today.
So you made a mention of people trying to follow a particular path, yeah, because you are speaking from the general view, yeah. But in terms of robotics, because this is there are few people that work actually they have their mind aligned with this will I call it sector rather, because very soon, yeah, most people want to venture into that department, as you said. What advice do you have for them? Personalized, that's for robotics, yeah,
Well, yeah. I mean,
because it's a really interesting field, I
yeah,
must
it is.
confess.
It is for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for one, yeah, you need to go to like a country that helps you actually like achieve your goals, right? Because trying to build from here is extremely tricky. It is like why we are going to America, right? Because America is where we need to be. So, yeah, like I think you just have to sort of like care about that vessel you're trying to build or build for rather or build in as the case may be, and then just like follow it for the money, right? Because it's going to take a while for it to be liquid, like anyway. So you must well sort of like do something you actually care about, right? So because like robotics is super like sort of tricky, and then there's like a software and hardware component for like a lot of industries, right? Like for us, this is like software is heavily involved, right? We can't build our physical systems without software. In fact, we actually go to model our systems in software so we can actually cut costs and so we can like understand what works and what doesn't before we then build the physical systems.
Actually.
So it helps to like be educated about like a lot of the technologies that you want to actually use, right? And it helps to read. Well, or if you're not much of a reader, you could watch videos. That's what I prefer personally.
Okay.
It's much quicker. You could just get like a lot of info quickly. So yeah. So get like as much information as you can about your vertical. You might want to build a robot to move trucks. Yeah, like I'm giving a very, very vague example, right? So yeah. Or you could try to or you might want to build robots to clear lawns, etc. Look at your market and try to sort of like bridge the technical gap because most of the risks you're going to face are technical, especially if you're building physical systems because there typically isn't too much of a market risk when you're building things that are hard, right?
Yeah.
It's usually like a more of technical risk. You can see that with rockets. Rockets going to space are very, very valuable. They can send satellites, they can send shipments to the ISS, etc. But building like rockets, for you to build a rocket, you have to be technically competent, right? You need to know how to actually handle rocket engineering. You need to know how to like build your own engines or how to make sure like your fuel mixture is running cold, particular temperature, and make sure that your combustion is going correctly without any
Regulated
issues.
properly.
Exactly. All of that is extremely tricky, extremely. So you need technical competencies to be able to sort of solve each of these problems as they come. So
Interesting.
that is for I just gave an example using
Yes,
rockets. So
yes.
yeah, but you can apply this to hard science or hard tech, basically.
Interesting. But in terms of robotics and all in general, Won't robots be taking human jobs
Well,
at the long run?
I think if they save human lives, they absolutely should take human jobs. Yes,
I like
yes,
how
they
you,
should.
yeah, I like how you just came out.
Yes, they should. Because why would you want people to die
Hmm.
when robots could do this job?
Hmm.
That's counterintuitive. It makes no sense.
Hmm.
What? Yeah. So that's my POV.
Interesting. So it was nice having you, Mr.
Likewise, man.
Shea. It's a
Likewise.
pleasure.
Likewise.
All
For
right.
sure. Thank you very much.
Bless you,
Yeah.
bro.